Hello and welcome to Township Talk. I'm Brady McHale. Township Talk looks at each of the departments that make up the administrative aspect of Lower Merion Township. Today I'm glad to welcome Finance Director Eric Traub to the show. Welcome, Eric, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Brady. Happy to be here.
So we're really excited to jump into finance and learn a little bit more about your department today, but let's learn a little bit more about you before we do that. How long have you been with the Township?
So I actually just passed my 8th year with the Township. Prior to that, I actually started off my career in public finance actually at New York State. So I was in Albany, New York, and I worked for the Division of Budget there. And then I came down to the Philadelphia area. I worked for a consulting firm in Philadelphia that does both operational and financial consulting for state and local governments across the country. So I traveled to Florida, to Nebraska, to California, all sorts of different interesting things, and really enjoyed that. But eventually really wanted to kind of make a home, stay down, not do the get up at 4 a.m. to travel to Nebraska anymore. So I took a job as the finance director in East Norriton Township in Montgomery County. Was there about 5 years, and then came here to Lower Merion, and the rest is history, as they say.
Well, we're happy to have you here. And aside from size, what would you say are the major differences between state finance, what you previously did, and municipal finance, what you're presently doing?
So I look at states. States are like big piggy banks. They just take in a whole bunch of money and they hold it, and then they like give it out to other people to do things. So, you know, they give money out to counties to do things, to provide direct services and such. The reason I like municipal finance and local government is because they really do stuff. So yeah, you collect the revenues and such, but then you're doing the direct service delivery. You're providing the recreation programs, the police services, fire services, inspection services, all those things. You know, at the state level, it's much more of like a macro. So it's what's going on with sales tax across the state and what's going on with the economy and such. Here with municipal finance, it's really much more the focus on the micro level. So even if there's a national recession or slowdown in the region, it doesn't necessarily mean that things are different or trending in one direction or the other here in Lower Merion. We tend to have a really strong local economy, local business environment, and things of that nature. So it's much more kind of specific in local government in finances, and not really as much influenced by what's going on nationally or statewide.
I have to ask, did you always envision yourself working in local government?
Not at all. So I actually, when I went to college, I actually thought I was going to be a history teacher. But that as the more I went through that in terms of the education aspect of it, you know, it didn't really, you know, kind of meet my strengths as much as I thought it would. So when I went to grad school, to get a MPA, Masters of Public Administration, which me and my friends would joke is for people who didn't know if they wanted to go to grad school or business school, because it's kind of, or law school or business school, because it's kind of a mix of both. So when I went there, I always had an interest in like politics and government, and you know, really found kind of a niche in sort of public finance. I always enjoyed math, at least when it was numbers, not too many letters, and get into calculus and things of that nature.
Of course.
So you know, once I started taking public finance and then local government classes, really enjoyed it, and it was really a good match for me.
That's great. So there's a lot of moving parts in the Lower Merion finance department. You guys have different divisions, if you will. I think function or purchasing, accounting, revenue. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Yeah,
so there really is a lot. So one of the big things we do is try to collect revenue. So business taxes is a really large part of that. We work cooperatively with the tax collector in terms of collecting the annual real estate taxes, solid waste fees, current sewer fees. We collect any of the delinquent fees in terms of sewer and solid waste, alarm registrations. You know, then there's really the accounting, financial management aspect of it. So when you look at that, that's where you're really talking about, you know, paying your vendors, setting up purchasing, following all the state and local rules around purchasing to make sure, you know, we're following all the bidding requirements and things of that nature. All the accounting that goes into a large municipality with a all funds budget of over 140 million. Cash management, so we make sure we're making money as much as we can legally and in the type of investments we can legally in terms of any of our idle cash. Debt management, issuance of bonds, payroll processing for over 400 full-time employees. And then, as always, for us, we always have these two big projects always going on throughout the year, which seem to never end, one being the budget and then one being the audit. So they always seem to be ongoing.
Well, it's almost like it's scripted, because my next question, I was going to ask you about the budget. We're coming up on budget season. I know that the Board of Commissioners will be having they do their meetings regarding the budget, and they have different work sessions. I'm sure you're a part of all of those. Can you walk us through the budget process and when you get started?
Yeah, it's a long process. It starts really in early June for us, and we start with doing requests from each individual department. We give them kind of various rules to follow in terms of their requests. If they're requesting something new or something different, their justifications for that. Obviously, we encourage them to be as cost conscious as they can. As always, it is taxpayer dollars. So then in July, early August, we have meetings in terms of, so we'll use Parks and Recreation for an example. They'll come in, they'll have a meeting with myself, the assistant finance director, and the township manager and assistant manager and such, and we'll review their budget soup to nuts. So that's going to go into all the nitty-gritty details, from anything what conference they might want to travel to what are they doing for invasive species of plants and trying to control those. So we're looking at everything across all their funds, all their different functions and things of that nature. And we'll try to come up with basically a list of items that we feel need policy guidance from the board. Those are items that we'll bring forward to the board when we have our budget workshops and then our finance committee meetings through kind of September and October. And that all really builds to the big reveal, the proposed budget that happens in early November. And then the board obviously will go through that with a fine-tooth comb. The public can comment on that. And then we go hopefully all the way until the end of December, where we have an adopted budget as a Christmas present to everyone.
So that's a good thing. How can the community be involved in the budgeting process?
So, in terms of any of our finance committee meetings, the board always leaves aside time for public comment. So anytime there's any sort of finance-related issue, anytime throughout the year, the public is encouraged to, whether that's comment just via email in advance of the meeting, attend the meeting in person, online, things of that nature. In terms of throughout the budget process specifically, when you get into the final quarter of the year, any of those finance committee meetings they can attend. And then in November and usually in December, we'll always have two public meetings where the public is invited to come comment on the budget. So any comments they have on any aspect of the budget, they're invited to come and bring those comments forward to the board so that the public really has the chance to have their say on the budget.
You mentioned, in addition to budgeting, also like capital projects or large projects that are being done here in Lower Merion Township. Anything that you want to share? Any important ones that are going on now?
Well, we're hoping in the next 6 or so months to hopefully be going to bid for the basically reconstruction, then extensive renovations to the Ardmore Avenue Community Center and the Palm. That's a large project, going to be in excess of $10 million. Which is also going to be partially funded through our American Rescue Plan funds. So I think that's a project that's going to have a real kind of transformative impact on Ardmore specifically, in terms of that facility has been there for decades. It will really give a whole new look to the facility, more amenities for the community, and on the senior citizen end with the Palm, will allow them to do more accessible programming, better facilities for the seniors and things of that nature.
And we're so lucky that we have these opportunities and places like you call it the Ardmore Rec Center, I call it the Shack.
Yep,
it is so beneficial to our community for all ages and all year round, and especially the pool in the summertime. And same with the Palm, the activities that our elderly residents can use, and as well as the transportation that they provide. It's a vital part of this township. We have a lot to get to. I want to kind of take a break here. We'll be right back with Eric Traub here on Township Talk and learn a little bit more about the finance department. Welcome back to Township Talk. I'm Brady McHale, and we're talking today with Eric Traub, the Director of the Finance Department for Lower Merion Township. Eric, we touched on so much in our first half here before that little break, but there's some other things that I wanted to discuss because you're not alone in the Finance Department. Who else works with you, some of your colleagues, and their roles?
So we have a team of 10, a lot of experienced professionals. We are a bit larger than most finance departments, not just because of the size of Lower Merion, but also because the township actually collects its own business taxes in-house as opposed to using an outside contractor. So that's something that makes us a little bit unique. But it is a large team, but we all really work well together and try to get through each day and each challenge that the residents and the township throws at us.
Well, and there's always moving parts in Lower Merion Township. It's a 24/7 operation here at the township between the police and fire. What are some of the challenges that the finance department faces?
So it's going to vary by time. So, we could be dealing with a really complex business structure in terms of there's a partnership within an LLC and they have pass-through revenue and things of that nature. So we're trying to figure out from a legal perspective, does our business gross receipts tax apply to them? We could be looking at a project that one of our department wants to do and trying to kind of craft a new RFP or structure for bidding or things of that nature. We can have some difficult and lengthy public meetings here, especially with our Board of Commissioners, with 14 of them and an involved public with lots of questions on budget and financial issues in terms of how are we going to spend our budgeted dollars, how are we going to allocate our American Rescue Plan dollars, things of that nature. And even right now, the pools just recently opened, at least for the weekend. When they open full time, that brings another couple hundred employees that we got to process payroll for. So, it really varies by the time of year, but there is always a challenge, and that's what it kind of drives us and excites us as well.
Well, it's great, and it sounds like you guys are working and collaborating so well together. In terms of managing emergencies, the finance department is very involved there as well. So whether it's a issue with the road repair or a issue with the sewer, how do you respond to emergencies and the funding aspect?
Yeah, so obviously we're not the ones that are filling the potholes or things of that nature, but we really see ourselves as we're the central service agency that kind of helps support all the departments do their job. So the ways we try to do that efficiently is things like having contracts in place for whether it might be like certain equipment with operators or things of that nature that are kind of on call for, might be the sewer department, might be the public works department. So if there's something that happens, we have a contract vehicle that's there, that's already something that we can call in and execute on very quickly in order to bring in additional resources if we need it. The other thing we try to do is use, there's statewide contracts which allow us to go beyond the actual standard bidding process. So we try to use those contracts where we can. And at times there's just emergencies that just have to happen. We had that when COVID started. We basically suspended certain purchasing rules. So it wasn't like you had to go and get 3 quotes for gloves or masks or things of that nature. If you had someone who could get them for you, just go and get them. Same thing if we have a really bad thunderstorm and we have trees down and we need to clear trees or whatever, we don't have the time to necessarily go out and it's going to be over $22,000. We need to talk to 6 different companies and get bids on tree removal. We'll find the vendors that we work with, see who can help us and do an emergency contract and then go back to the board afterwards, explain the process that we used and get their approval. So we try to understand the situation and then kind of tailor our response to whatever that situation really needs in order to support those departments kind of get the job done for the residents.
Let's talk about the township's commitment to financial transparency. What exactly does that mean?
So it means a lot to us because we know people want to know where their tax dollars go. So even on our finance department website, we have a section that's literally labeled financial transparency. So on there, you have, I think it's at least 3 years of every single financial update I've done to the board on any single topic. So you can go back and look at, wow, Eric, your budget projections in 2020 were terrible. You were way off on this, that. Or you can look back at, more recently and say, oh my gosh, those expenditure projections were within, 0.5%. We also have check registers for at least the last year always up. So you can look at every single dollar that the township has sent out. So you can look at what vendors we're paying, how much we're paying them, et cetera. We also have a section on township debt, which, debt can be a very confusing topic because someone
Very hot topic right now.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, with the debt ceiling and everything else. So we're glad actually right now that we don't have any need to go to the debt markets because we were pretty fortunate. We issued debt right before the real run-up on interest rates happened in 2022. So, but we try to have what we kind of call a citizen-friendly kind of conversation about debt. So why do we issue debt? What do the rating agencies think of our debt? So you have links there to our current Moody's and S&P rating reports. How much debt do we have outstanding? What is that debt for? Is it for governmental purposes? So whether it's infrastructure, roads, township facilities, or is it for sewer? Which is more an enterprise fund activity, which is run as a kind of a private business kind of within the township. So we have that there to try to kind of have plain language. Everyone can kind of understand it if they have any knowledge of the township and debt in general and kind of have an understanding. And then we also have a portal to a partnership we have with a company called ClearGov, which kind of gives you a look at the township finances in a different way, allows you to kind of compare sort of our revenues, expenditures to other area communities and things of that nature. So we really do think about financial transparency and try to do that extensively throughout our operations.
And that, as you mentioned, can be found on the webpage.
On the township's website, yeah.
Let's say I wanted to open up a business, and what would I have to do? What licenses would I need?
So if you're going to open say you're going to be online selling some sort of secondhand, AV equipment, shirts, you're doing something out of your house. First, you're going to need to pay a business license. You're going to need to register with us. You can go onto the finance department's webpage under the business tax division. There's an application there for a business license. It's a $20 annual fee. It's a one-page application. And then generally we'll send you basically your business tax number. Then your responsibility overall is really to kind of, you track your finances, you do your operations. And there's two other taxes you pay. There's a local services tax because you're operating in Lower Merion Township, and as long as you make over the income threshold, there's a $52 a year local services tax.
Okay.
And then there's a business privilege tax. So that's what I was referring to earlier in terms of a tax based on gross receipts. So if you made $1 million in gross receipts, it would generally be $1,000 or $1,500 a year. It's a flat percentage, and then those are paid every April 15th along with the federal income tax deadline.
I noticed on the website a few things that caught my eye. So the sanitary sewer rate, can you tell us a little bit about that?
So that's the rate you pay in terms of for us to be able to kind of take everything that leaves the toilets and sinks away in a clean and healthy manner, so it leaves your house and never comes back. So that's
thank you for that. I can speak for all of Lower Merion residents there.
It's a dirty job sometimes, but someone has to do it. So it's $4.51 per 1,000 gallons. That's really the lowest in the area that of any municipality that does their billing based upon consumption, and even I think people who do it on a flat rate. We haven't increased that in over 10 years. We've been fortunate in terms of having some larger one-time fees from connections that we've had and other things. And in general, the sewer rate, we believe we're going to be able to hopefully keep it steady for another year or so. But as we get further along, we actually will be renegotiating in a few years with the city of Philadelphia, which is where all the sewage flows, on a new agreement for them to continue to take our sewage. So that would probably have an impact on our rates moving forward.
That's good to know. We have a few minutes left. I was just going through your website, or going through the different links there, and I noticed the disability waiver for rear yard collection. What is that?
Yeah, so if you are an elderly resident and you are not physically able to move your trash, say from the back of your garage up to the curb, we have a process by which I think it's basically a one-page form. You take that to your doctor, they certify that, and then you can have rear yard collection. So The trash and recycling guys will come up the driveway and take your trash away, and you won't have to pay that rear yard fee. It also will apply, say you were in a car accident, you broke both your legs, you're an able-bodied person and things of that nature, but for that temporary period you can't do that. We can do that, and so we try to work with our residents who might have any of those physical limitations.
All of this is so helpful, and I think the work that you guys are doing, often goes unnoticed by the public. You're kind of behind the scenes, you and your colleagues. So certainly thank you for that, and we're just lucky to have you, and I'm really appreciative of your time here today. So thank you so much for giving us all this great information. If you want to learn more, you can visit our website at lowermerion.org. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.